This video was brought to you by my loyal patrons. Pledge today and receive exclusive perks. Link in the description. If you're from the States like me, then this was probably the voice of Thomas for you.
I'm Thomas. I run this branch line.
Or maybe it was this.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the island of Sodor.
Or maybe even this.
Hello, my name is Thomas.
Thomas and Friends is famously a UK property, created by a reverend in England and made into a TV series in England. It made its way over to the States in 1989, and many changes were made to it to make it appeal to an American audience. Nothing too crazy, of course, but it was packaged differently at first. As a segment on the half-hour PBS series Shining Time Station. The live-action character of Mr. Conductor lived in the station, and would tell stories of Thomas and his friends to the children there. And each time he did, it'd cut to a Thomas episode. The episodes were all redubbed as a result, first by Ringo Starr, and later by George Carlin. And while Shining Time Station eventually ended, Thomas still kept going strong on its own. And while it passed through many owners after, they all kept the trend of having an exclusive US dub going till the series end in 2020. You might be asking, what is the point of a US dub? I mean, they're still speaking English, so what's wrong with just using the original UK dub here? It's not like the UK dubs American shows or movies with British voice actors.
Is this Lightning McQueen, the world's fastest racing machine?
Is this Harv, the world's greatest agent?
And it is such an honor to be your agent.
Is that Jeremy Clarkson? Huh, I guess they do sometimes. Creating a US dub was all a part of a major localization effort when bringing Thomas to the States. Thomas was kind of a weird show even back then, being filmed with model trains with faces that don't move. It was so unlike anything on kids' TV in America. So this was a way of making it more presentable and comfortable with American audiences. This was common practice for British kids shows of the time. Many shows are redubbed with American voices, like Bob the Builder and Fireman Sam. I also feel like star power played a part too. Michelangelos probably wasn't going to turn as many heads in the US market as much as someone like George Carlin or Alec Baldwin. And I mean, hey, it clearly worked. The US dub of Thomas is interesting, because it is Thomas in English, but with a different guy. Sometimes the same guy, telling the stories. And with all these tiny changes made, some of which you may not even notice at first, it's a totally different experience, and can sometimes feel like a different show. I'm of course from America, so the US dub is what I'm used to. And let me tell ya, it was so fascinating back in the day of early YouTube, when I learned a totally different guy narrated the same stories that I knew so well across the pond. Hearing Michelangelos narrate Season 3 was surreal as heck back then.
Thomas the Tank Engine was feeling bright and cheerful. It was a splendid day.
Thomas and Friends was a pretty easy show to localize for the States, because for the first 11 seasons, the characters' mouths didn't move, so the scripts could be altered and redubbed quite easily. Things got a little more difficult once everything shifted to CGI, but they still maintained the major differences between each dub. And today, I want to go through those differences, major and minor, and hopefully point out a couple changes that you may not have noticed before. This is by no means a complete list of every single difference between the two dubs, so if you know something that I do not cover here, please share it in the comments below. So let's start this, shall we? But where do we begin? Terminology. We'll start with this. Let's kick off this section with the first and only real case of censorship in the US dub, surrounding the Fat Controller.
Along came Sir Topham Hatt, the man in charge of all the engines on Sodor. They call him the Fat Controller.
The Fat Controller is a nickname all the engines and railway workers call Sir Topham Hatt, the controller of Sodor's railways. And he gained that nickname for pretty obvious reasons. It's meant to be an affectionate nickname, and they never call it to him to his face. Well, most of the time.
Fat Controller, I am sorry to keep you waiting.
Wow, how bold of you. The characters and narrator only ever refer to him by his full name in moments of formality or moments of tension. Since it's so rarely said, it made it clear to the audience that they meant business in that moment.
Then we'll just have to stop them, won't we? Said Sir Topham Hatt firmly.
It hits like, oh, shit, they said the full name. This is serious. However, in the US, using the word fat to refer to someone's appearance is considered insulting. And when Thomas was brought to the States in 1989, this was one of the big sticking points. The character could not be called the Fat Controller over here. So, in the US dub, he has always been referred to by his full name instead.
He was, of course, the Fat Controller, but Toby didn't know this yet. He was, of course, Sir Topham Hatt, but Toby didn't know this yet.
And it's been this way for decades. For 24 seasons, he has consistently been the Fat Controller in the UK and Sir Topham Hatt in the US.
The Fat Controller won't still be here, will he?
No, he won't be here.
Sir Topham Hatt won't still be here, will he?
No, he won't be here.
There's a joke in The Adventure Begins where James begins to call him the Fat Controller, but gets silenced by Edward so Topham doesn't hear him.
And here comes the Sir Topham Hatt.
But since they can't say fat in the US dub, they instead have James refer to him as the boss instead.
And here comes the boss.
Sir Topham Hatt.
Something that they never call him. That gag didn't translate very well, did it? Why would Edward think Topham would be offended if someone called him the boss?
That's right, boss. Boss?
Huh. That didn't stop them from using the term in the songs over here, though. They were pretty loosey-goosey with the term in the early years. They let it slide in marketing and things like character bios.
After nationalization, when I was awarded a knighthood for my services to the railway industry, I became Sir Topham Hatt, the Fat Controller.
It just was never said in the show itself. But of course, they became more strict as time went on, even going to the trouble of making two entirely different versions of this song for the UK and US respectively.
So sing along with the Fat Controller song. With the Fat Controller song. So sing along with Sir Topham Hatt song. With Sir Topham Hatt song.
The fact they went out of their way to do this. I find it a bit baffling that the US was the one who had the issue with the name. However, they were a bit ahead of their time with this change, because now it's the norm in both countries. The UK has caught up now, and the Fat Controller has sadly become an outdated term there too. They don't use it in All Engines Go, Wonders of Sodor, and I doubt they will in the 2026 reboot either. It wasn't just the Fat Controller that was changed over here. All instances of the word fat were removed and replaced with something else.
Rubbish, said Thomas. You're too fat, you need exercise.
Rubbish, said Thomas. You're too slow. You need exercise.
Peep, 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 peep. Hello, fat face, whistled Henry. Peep, 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 peep. Hello, lazy bones, whistled Henry.
Except here, for some reason.
No fear, chuckled James. I'm not so fat as you.
So did they just miss that one, or did they leave that in intentionally? And since the Fat Controller isn't a thing in the US, the Thin Controller isn't either. So when that character was introduced into the TV show, he remained the Thin Controller in the UK, as he was in the books.
Madge was there, and so was the Thin Controller.
Are you sure this is a good idea?
The Thin Controller has approved it, Rheneas.
And has always been referred to by his surname, Mr. Percival, in the US.
Madge was there, and so was Mr. Percival.
Are you sure this is a good idea?
Mr. Percival has approved it, Rheneas.
While we're on the topic of censorship, let me throw in these instances of problematic language as well. In Trouble in the Shed, Edward works during a strike and becomes upset because the engines all say he has black wheels.
They say tender engines don't shunt, and last night they said I have black wheels.
This is a play on the term blackleg, which describes someone who works during a strike. I guess they feared American audiences would not be familiar with that term and assume it was some sort of racial remark. So they changed the line in the US dub to,
They say tender engines don't shunt, and last night they said I have grey wheels.
Which now makes no sense. In Save from Scrap, Trevor mentions having a master.
My driver says I only need some paint, polish, and oil to be as good as new, but my master says I'm old-fashioned.
Again, they probably saw this as being a bit insensitive, so they changed it to owner in the US.
My driver says I only need some paint, polish, and oil to be as good as new, but my owner says I'm old-fashioned.
These and Topham's name were changed for censorship reasons, but a lot of other terminology was changed here too for the sake of localization. They obviously wanted to localize Thomas here, so they used more common American railroading terms. Trucks and wagons, for instance, predominantly became freight cars.
Now, trucks are silly and noisy. They talk a lot and don't attend to what they are doing. Now, the freight cars are silly and noisy. They talk a lot and don't attend to what they are doing.
Now this is how you pull trucks, he puffed.
Now this is how you pull freight cars, he puffed.
Guards became conductors.
Just then the guard blew his whistle, and James thought they had better go. Just then the conductor blew his whistle, and James thought they had better go.
And points became switches.
The fireman went to turn the points. The fireman went to throw the switch.
But there are times when the UK terminology gets missed and slips through the cracks.
Gordon saw the guard. At the yards, Percy was collecting trucks.
It's a very busy day, Hero. I have to visit the Thin Controller.
Whoops. For some strange reason, in Season 10 only, they decided that coaches was too British of a term for the US, so they started referring to them as passenger cars instead.
Henry asked Toby to take his carriages to Knapford Station.
Henry asked Toby to take his passenger cars to Knapford Station.
Emily raced to Knapford with Gordon's special coaches.
Emily raced to Knapford with Gordon's special cars.
Don't my coaches look splendid?
Don't my passenger cars look splendid?
This is literally only a thing for this season, and then they go back to using coaches after it. What a strange thing to change all of a sudden. I don't really understand it. They tried to make cabooses a thing early on, replacing the word brake van.
And the driver and fireman were drinking cocoa in the brake van.
And the driver and fireman were drinking cocoa in the caboose.
The guard's van was left on the siding.
The caboose was left on the siding.
There were even passengers in the guard's van.
There were even passengers in the caboose.
These are like the only instances of this happening, I think anyway. And the term brake van pretty quickly remained as the norm.
There was a brake van in the yard that had taken a dislike to Douglas.
I guess the spiteful caboose doesn't have the same aura as spiteful brake van, does it? Imagine if they called Toad the brake van Toad the caboose over here. Ugh, don't like that. There's a ton of small phrases and words that were altered too, to localize the dialogue even more. I can't possibly remember every single change, but here's some that I do remember off the top of my head. They include: rubbish is always called garbage in the US. So WIF is known as the rubbish engine in the UK, and the garbage engine in the US.
WIF is the rubbish engine. He likes to collect all the rubbish on Sodor.
WIF is the garbage engine. He likes to collect all the garbage on Sodor.
The only times they use the word rubbish is when a character is using it as a remark.
Rubbish, said James.
They sometimes changed tea to lunch, such as here.
You must make sure they have a wonderful time and are back in time for their tea.
You must make sure they have a wonderful time and are back in time for their lunch.
Current buns aren't really a thing in the US, so...
Molehills, he cried excitedly. Hundreds of them. It looks like a giant currant bun, only green.
Molehills, he cried excitedly. Hundreds of them. It looks like a giant chocolate chip cookie, only green.
And neither are crumpets, so...
The island needs its morning toast, and Lady Hat and I need our crumpets.
The island needs its morning toast, and Lady Hat and I need our English muffins, he added sternly.
Fun fairs are always called carnivals for some reason.
It was the day of the Fat Controller's Fun Fair.
It was the day of Sir Topham Hatt's carnival.
That evening, Rosie and Emily watched the children at the fun fair.
That evening, Rosie and Emily watched the children at the carnival.
There's also this.
I hope someone comes quickly, moaned Thomas. That fish will go off soon.
I hope someone comes quickly, moaned Thomas.
That fish will spoil soon.
I think you all get the picture here. Dialogue and sound effects. We talked about several instances of terminology being changed, but now let's talk about full chunks of dialogue, where the characters say totally different things depending on which dub you're watching. And sometimes even sound effects vary. Dialogue changes were really common in the first season, mostly in the early episodes. I'm not sure why for some of these. I guess it was to simplify scenes or to make the morals a little more clear. In Thomas and Gordon, after Thomas tells Gordon to hurry himself, the narrator says,
Gordon began making his plan. Yes, said Gordon, I will.
But in the US dub, he instead says this.
Gordon, the proud engine, began making his plan to teach Thomas a lesson for teasing him.
Gee, thanks for clarifying who Gordon is to us. I totally forgot until just now. The ending dialogue goes,
He went home very slowly and was careful afterwards never to be cheeky to Gordon again.
But in the US, Thomas instead says this to himself.
Maybe I don't have to tease Gordon to feel important, Thomas thought to himself, and he puffed slowly home.
The sad story of Henry saw a lot of dialogue changes. I think they knew even back then that this episode's bleak ending was a bit unsettling, so they changed some lines to soften the blow a bit. In the original, Topham tells Henry,
We shall take away your rails, he said, and leave you here for always and always and always,
making it sound very definite. In the US, however, he instead says,
We shall take away your rails, he said, and leave you here until you're ready to come out of the tunnel.
The ending monologue is this in the UK dub.
He wondered if he would ever be allowed to pull trains again. But I think he deserved his punishment. Don't you?
And they changed it to this in the US.
How long do you think Henry will stay in the tunnel before he overcomes his fear of the rain and then decides to journey out again?
Implying that a day will come that Henry will be let out, but he has to learn his lesson first, which is reflected in the next episode.
Oh dear, thought Henry, why did I worry about rain spoiling my lovely coat of paint? Will the Fat Controller ever forgive me and let me out again? Oh dear, thought Henry, why did I worry about rain spoiling my lovely coat of paint? I'd like to come out of the tunnel, but Henry didn't know how to ask.
The ending of Thomas's train adds a new line.
But for a long time afterwards, the other engines laughed at Thomas and said, Look, there's Thomas who wanted to pull a train but forgot about the coaches. Afterwards, the other engines laughed at Thomas and said, Look, there's Thomas who wanted to pull a train but forgot about the coaches. But Thomas had already learned not to make the same mistake again.
And the entire little pep talk that Topham gives Thomas here in Thomas and the Breakdown Train is completely different for whatever reason.
Remember, don't be impatient, Thomas. You can never be as strong and fast as Gordon, but you can be a really useful engine. Don't let the silly trucks tease you. Don't let the silly freight cars tease you. Remember, you have an important job as a special helper in the train yard.
The narrator's ending monologue in Whistles and Sneezes is different.
Henry went home very pleased with himself. He had taught Gordon and silly boys a lesson with a whistle and a sneeze.
Henry went home hoping that next time he saw Gordon and the boys, they would have learned not to be so mean.
When the coal hopper starts dumping coal on Thomas in Thomas, Percy, and the Coal, he originally said,
Help! I'm choking!
Cried Thomas.
I guess they didn't like the implication of choking in the US dub, so they had Ringo do a blood-curdling scream here instead.
Help! Help!
Cried Thomas.
That is hilarious. George Carlin's take just doesn't compete.
Help! Help! Cried Thomas.
In Ghost Train, Percy's driver says he heard the ghost story from watching television.
Neither do I. It was a pretend ghost on television.
But in the US, they omit this.
Neither do I. It was only a pretend ghost story.
I'm pretty lost on this one. Is it ironic that they didn't want to mention a character watching television on a television show? Bizarre change there. In Steamroller, the narrator says this during Sir Handel and George's standoff.
I don't move for imitation steamrollers, huffed George. They lumbered along as the insults continued.
In the US dub, this is replaced by a new line from George.
I don't move for imitation steamrollers. You don't know the road. Get out of my way.
The early Ringo episodes add a lot of adjectives to the narrator's lines when describing a character, such as here in Edward Helps Out. Originally he said,
He forgot all about Edward and didn't wait to say thank you.
But in the US dub, he says,
He forgot all about kind Edward and didn't say thank you.
They added kind for whatever reason. In Thomas Comes to Breakfast, he originally said,
Meanwhile, Donald and Douglas arrived.
And in the US dub, he says,
Then the Scottish twin engines, Donald and Douglas, arrived.
These are pretty nonsense changes in my opinion, but I suspect they added these here because they assumed episodes would get aired out of order in the States. So maybe they felt they needed to add extra narration descriptors for kids to understand the characters quickly if they had never seen them before. Which was the case with Thomas Comes to Breakfast. This was technically the Scots' first appearance over here. So, fair enough, I suppose. Sometimes there are instances where scripts are simplified a bit for the US dub, chopping out whole bits of dialogue. I don't really know why. My guess is it was just to make the narrator's lines a little less clunky. Brevity is the soul of wit, I suppose. An example of this is at the end of Bowled Out.
He'd slipped out whilst no one was looking. He said goodbye to no one but left two things behind.
He'd slipped out while no one was looking, but he left two things behind.
And this occurs a lot in Season 5. Here's some comparisons.
Rubbish, said Thomas. We always arrange our trucks like this, and no crane has ever complained before.
Rubbish, said Thomas. No crane has ever complained before.
The little engines were pleased to see him go. Rollers are rubbish, so good riddance, they called.
The little engines were pleased to see him go.
It was a moonlit night and Henry was working with Edward. The big green engine was taking a goods train to the station by the lake.
It was a moonlit night. Henry was taking a goods train to the station by the lake.
Bill and Ben, behave yourselves or I shall send you to your sheds, said the Fat Controller.
Bill and Ben, behave yourselves, said Sir Topham Hatt.
Oh, what's that? His wheels spun and then there was trouble.
Oh, what's that?
When Henry arrived at the docks, Cranky the Crane looked down at him disdainfully. My, Henry, I expect you'll have some fishy tales to tell, but take my advice, have a long hose down first. Ha! Hissed Henry.
When Henry arrived at the docks, Cranky the Crane looked down on him. My, Henry, I expect you'll have some fishy tales to tell. But take my advice, have a long hose down first.
Come on, Harold. They waited and waited.
Come on, Harold!
Boulder was catching up to them fast, but they veered into a siding.
Boulder was catching up fast.
Percy's unusual train was on its way.
I wouldn't be surprised if that last one was just an editing mistake. Thomas Percy and the Squeak has some hilarious dialogue in the UK dub. Percy arrives at the scene covered in filth, and this happens.
Look at the little green engine, Alicia Botti exclaimed. So sweet and dirty, like a proper steam engine.
Peasant, Gordon huffed snootily.
Yes, I am pleasant, smiled Percy.
Oh, that's great. But I guess they thought that whole exchange was too British or something for the US audience, so they changed it to this.
Look at the little green engine, Alicia Botti exclaimed. So sweet and dirty, like a proper steam engine. But he's filthy, Gordon huffed snootily. But I clean up nice, smiled Percy.
Wow, good going, guys. Way to make a funny scene totally lame though. Jumping to the CGI series now, in Season 19's Who's Geoffrey, at the end of the episode, Topham tells Thomas about the time he accidentally broke Lady Hatt's teapot. And he says,
And do you know what I did?
You told her Jeffrey had done it?
No, I owned up.
However, in the US dub, he says this instead.
And do you know what I did?
You told her Jeffrey had done it?
No, I admitted it.
Such a minor, unnecessary change. They've used the term owning up plenty of times in the US dub before this.
Thanks for owning up to it, replied Arthur.
Let's transition to a couple major sound effects changes now. In the UK dub of Season 18's Flatbeds of Fear, the mysterious noise the engines hear in the fog sounds like this.
At Brendam Docks, Cranky was unloading a big shipment of building supplies.
What's that noise?
Very alien-like. However, in the US dub, and only in the US dub, the noise sounds like this.
At Brendam Docks, Cranky was unloading a big shipment of building supplies.
What's that noise?
That is wildly different. This is only present on the Trouble on the Tracks DVD. In all versions on streaming and elsewhere, the US dub uses the more alien-like sound.
At Brendam Docks, Cranky was unloading a big shipment of building supplies.
What's that noise?
I got nothing. Anyone got an explanation for this change? Jumping back to Thomas, Percy, and the Squeak again, the squeak sound effect used for Alicia the Mouse also varies between different versions of each dub. In the UK dub, it normally sounds like this.
And Thomas named her Alicia.
And it sounds the same in the US.
And Thomas named her Alicia.
However, only on the UK Bumper Party Collection DVD, a completely different sound effect is used.
And Thomas named her Alicia.
This kind of stuff makes me feel like I'm going crazy, man. Like, why did they change it so long after the fact? And only here? How does this even happen? Episode titles. When Thomas came to the States, they had the brilliant idea to go and change all the episode titles. That's not confusing at all. I'll speed run through all of them for seasons 1 and 2. Thomas and Gordon became Thomas Gets Tricked. Edward and Gordon became Edward Helps Out. The Sad Story of Henry became Come Out Henry. That's a pretty bad one. Edward, Gordon, and Henry became Henry to the Rescue. Thomas's Train became A Big Day for Thomas. Thomas and the Trucks became Trouble for Thomas. How generic. Why not Thomas and the Freight Cars? Thomas and the Breakdown Train became Thomas Saves the Day. James and the Coaches became James Learns a Lesson. I actually don't mind that one. Troublesome Trucks became Foolish Freight Cars. James and the Express became A Proud Day for James. Thomas and the Guard became Thomas and the Conductor. Okay, this one I get. Thomas, Terrence, and the Snow became Terrence the Tractor. Thomas and Bertie became Thomas and Bertie's Great Race. Coal became Henry's Special Coal. Toby and the Stout Gentleman became Toby the Tram Engine. Thomas in Trouble became Thomas Breaks the Rules. Dirty Objects became James in a Mess. Off the Rails became Gordon Takes a Dip. I also kind of like this one. Thomas, Percy, and the Coal became Double Trouble. Cows became A Cow on the Line. Thomas and Trevor became A New Friend for Thomas. Percy and Harold became Percy Proves a Point. Dirty Work became Diesel's Devious Deed. A Close Shave became A Close Shave for Duck. They just had to get his name in there, I guess. Brake Van became Donald and Douglas. This one hurts. Brake Van was such a good pun. And Ghost Train became Percy's Ghostly Trick. They stopped doing these name changes around season 3. The only reason that I can think for why they did this was to make them more marketable. For instance, a VHS tape called Thomas Gets Tricked probably sounds a bit more enticing than Thomas and Gordon. Gotta get some alliteration in there. James learns a lesson. Percy proves a point. Diesel's devious deed. Helps your mind remember them more. I think some of the changes were actually better. I vastly prefer Terrence the Tractor over the clunky Thomas, Terrence, and the Snow, or Toby the Tram Engine over Toby and the Stout Gentleman. But for the majority of these, I think it was a little bit of a pointless effort. Season 3's Thomas Percy and the Post Train became Thomas Percy and the Mail Train. This one is kind of interesting to me because the term mail train became the default term used in both dubs after Season 4 or so.
His driver took them along the coastal run with the mail train. The next morning, Percy was happily pulling the mail train,
retroactively making the UK title a bit of an oddball. The next major title change was in Season 4 with the episode Trucks. Already a bit of a strange title. They obviously couldn't use it in the US because they don't call them trucks over here. I assume they thought the title Cars or Freight Cars was a bit strange too, so they just fully renamed it to Rusty Helps Peter Sam. I mean, yeah, sure, okay, why not? Beyond that, all the titles stay the same between dubs for the most part. The only time they change is when the title contains some of the changed terminology, such as trucks, Fat Controller, or rubbish. So episodes like Timothy and the Rainbow Truck became Timothy and the Rainbow Car in the US. Missing Trucks became Missing Freight Cars. Hunt the Truck became Hunt the Car. Goodbye Fat Controller became Goodbye Sir Topham Hatt. Emily's Rubbish became Emily and the Garbage. Buckled Tracks and Bumpy Trucks became Buckled Tracks and Bumpy Cars. This clunky title didn't even make sense to begin with. There's no bumpy trucks in the episode. Unless they're referring to this. I don't know, seems like a stretch to me. Season 7 saw a handful of its episodes inexplicably retitled just for home media release. Fergus Breaks the Rules became Thomas and the Search for Fergus. Snow Engine became Oliver the Snow Engine. Toby's Windmill became Toby and the Windmill. And my favorite, Not So Hasty Puddings became Thomas and the Avalanche. There wasn't even an avalanche in that episode. What kind of a title is that? These were weirdly only on the DVDs that these episodes originally came on. TV broadcasts and the versions currently on streaming all retain their original titles. Thank goodness. Since we're on Season 7, Season 7. Season 7 deserves its own category here, because it is definitely the season that is the most drastically different between the two dubs. Watching the US dub of this is a very different experience to the UK one. Some backstory here is necessary. Season 7 was the first season produced under Hit Entertainment's ownership after they acquired Glenn in 2002, and it was the final season produced with the old show team. It's the last to use the classic theme song, the shorter 5-minute runtime, David Mitton directing, and Mikan Jr. composing the score. It's universally viewed as the last classic Thomas season. Hit Entertainment implemented their big changes to Thomas in its 8th season, complete with a new theme song, new narrator, new format, new composer, etc. Season 7's distribution got a little screwed over in the US. It didn't release until 2004, and by that time, Season 8 was already set to air on PBS later that year. And so, Season 7 was sidelined so Hit could push Season 8, with 7's only major exposure being a couple episodes that made it to home media before Season 8 rolled in, and it being aired between Season 8 episodes in half-hour blocks on PBS. It was almost like they just threw in a Season 7 episode to help fill out the runtime. It was very much treated like filler. To make the episodes more consistent with the new Season 8 format, they had Michael Brandon go back and narrate all of them, and had all of their already existing background score replaced with a brand new score by the show's new composer, Robert Hartshorn. And these were the versions of the episodes that they eventually put on home media in the US, and is what is currently up on streaming. There's basically two versions of Season 7. The original intended version that the UK got that sticks to the format of Classic Thomas, and the reworked Hit version that the US got. It's crazy how just a new score and narrator can change the overall experience of these episodes. I will let these comparisons here speak for themselves.
By now, Edward was mended and hooked up to his coaches. "I can hear music," said his driver. "That's not music," wheezed Edward. "That's an alarm."
By now, Edward was mended and hooked up to his coaches. "I can hear music," said his driver. "That's not music," wheezed Edward. "That's an alarm."
Can't stop to listen to your silly chatter.
Gordon never listens to me, muttered Percy.
Can't stop to listen to your silly chatter. Gordon never listens to me, muttered Percy.
Fergus and his driver turned onto a disused track to find a place to hide. Fergus was frightened.
Fergus and his driver turned onto an unused track to find a place to hide. Fergus was frightened.
Suddenly, a tractor trundled across Duncan's line. "Look out!" shouted his driver.
Suddenly, a tractor trundled across Duncan's line. "Look out!" shouted his driver.
Luckily, the village inn had a toasty warm room for Oliver's driver. But Oliver was getting colder and colder.
Luckily, the village inn had a toasty warm room for Oliver's driver. But Oliver was getting colder and colder.
Now, I'm not saying that the new score by Hartshorn is bad or anything. I actually prefer some of his themes here, like Emily's, for example. But I can't help but feel kinda robbed. The US never got the privilege of hearing Mike and Jr.'s final contribution to Thomas in its entirety. We got a glimpse of it. We got 4 episodes on New Friends for Thomas with Michael Angelis narrating, the only time his narration was ever released in the US. This was during that middle period after Alec Baldwin had left, and before HIT had hired Michael Brandon. So they just got the UK narrator to do lines to ensure that this hit the release date.
The Fat Controller brought in a new engine to help with the heavy workload. Sir Topham Hatt brought in a new engine to help with the heavy workload. "The Fat Controller doesn't like the trucks singing," said Thomas. "You must stop them." "Sir Topham Hatt doesn't like the freight cars singing," said Thomas. "You must stop them."
This release was key to the 5 New Engines marketing campaign, and it introduced Emily, a key character in Season 8, so they couldn't delay it. And then 3 more episodes made their way onto Thomas and the Jet Engine in 2004, with Michael Brandon's narration paired with the Mike and Jr. score. The only time we ever heard those 2 things together.
In the summertime, there is no better place to be than the island of Sodor. The engines are happy to show vacationers the wonderful sights to be seen.
I can only assume that they used the old music and formats for these 3 episodes here simply to match the aesthetic of the other episodes that were on that DVD. Season 7 is a little bit of a sore spot for me. Not because I don't like the stories this year. I think they're actually an improvement over Season 6. I just don't really like either narrator this year. Michael Angelis talks way too slow for my liking, and Michael Brandon uses some of his worst voices throughout this season. Why on earth did he make Gordon sound like that?
"Perhaps," smiled Gordon, "but we better hurry. Everyone is waiting."
I do prefer the UK dub though, as it is the season in its intended form, before HIT stepped in and messed with it. We're now 20-something years later, and they still have not officially released the full season in the US with the original Mike and Jr. score, and I highly doubt that they ever will at this point. Voice acting. Obviously, each dub has its own narrators and voice actors. Now, I'm not going to go list off every character who has a different voice in each dub. That's not really what the point of this video is. But I will talk about some interesting differences. We'll start with some narrators, and then move into character voices. Ringo Starr was famously Thomas's first narrator, and narrated the first 2 seasons in the UK. When Thomas came to the States, Ringo was asked to return to play Mr. Conductor on Shining Time Station, and redubbed almost every episode with the new American terminology. The thing is, though, he never redubbed an entire episode, only portions of them. He only redid lines that featured the changed terminology. It's really noticeable when it cuts from old Ringo narration to a redubbed line.
Long ago, miners digging for lead had made tunnels under the ground. Their roofs are strong enough to hold up cars, but not the weight of engines. Percy had never been allowed to run fast before. He was having the time of his life. Hurry, hurry, hurry! He panted to the cars.
His new narration is so enthusiastic, I really like it. I only wish they bothered to have him re-narrate the whole episode, so everything sounded consistent. Not every season 1 and 2 episode was redubbed for the US, only the ones that aired on Shining Time Station during its first season. Ringo stepped away after that, and that's when George Carlin came in. Carlin did redub all of seasons 1 and 2 in their entirety, and I personally consider his versions the official US dub for these seasons. George Carlin is the GOAT. He's my personal favorite narrator. I grew up with his tapes specifically, and his seasons of Shining Time Station. He was the voice of Thomas to me.
I'm Thomas. I'm pulling a train. What ugly wheels you've got.
One of the funniest ad-libs from Carlin wasn't an intentional ad-lib. In Season 4's Special Attraction, Carlin accidentally hiccuped while saying Bulstrode's first line.
Today the barge was more bad-tempered than ever. Come on, come on. Why aren't you cars where you should be?
I'm sure he did more takes, but I like to think that they found it so funny that they just kept it in. I thought it was intentional as a kid, like he was trying to make Bulstrode sound like a cranky, drunken sailor or something. Michael Brandon is a very expressive narrator. I know he's not everyone's cup of tea, he's certainly not my favorite, but credit where credit's due. He brought a lot of personality quirks to his characters that were exclusive to his dubs. Little ascents or outbursts that weren't scripted, such as here in Fergus Breaks the Rules, where he gives Diesel this snarly laugh.
But he knew that really useful engines have to do as they are told.
Which is not present in the UK dub.
But he knew that really useful engines have to do as they are told.
Or this little gremlin laugh that he has Duncan do here in Duncan's Bluff.
Now James will think I've delivered all the coal, Duncan chuffed cheerfully.
Now James will think I've delivered all the coal. Duncan chuffed cheerfully.
You can tell he was just having too much fun here. I love these sort of gruffs, and hms he does for Oliver the Excavator throughout the Pack episodes.
Oh my no, said Oliver politely. Digging the foundations is the most important. And that's what I do. Ooh. And some more. And some more.
They give him so much character, it kind of sounds wrong that they're not present in the UK dub.
Oh my, no, rattled Oliver politely. Digging the foundations is the most important, and that's what I do. And some more.
He ad-libbed a line for Stepney here.
But Stepney was whistling because the truck of sugar...
Oh my. But Stepney was whistling...
Making this technically Stepney's final speaking role ever. What a way to go out. Oh, and how about this?
He rolled up behind Thomas and went...
Boo!
And went... Boo! Whoa!
In Duncan Does It All, he adds this line.
This is a wonderful job, he whistled excitedly.
Oh, this is a wonderful job, he whistled excitedly. Listen to that boing.
I don't know if that was a Brandon ad-lib or what, but hey, I'll count it. Oh, and how could I forget this?
And together, they left for the junction.
Go get him, Edward!
Keith Wickham is one of the show's more prolific voice actors during the CGI series, and he frequently tried to find ways to bring more personality to the characters in places he could. He was mostly a part of the show's UK cast, and since the US dub was recorded first and animated to those voices, he would come in later and sync up his characters' voices to the already completed animation. So when he spotted a chance to sneak in a little laugh or something, he would do it. For example, here's this exchange in Thomas and Scruff in the US dub.
You're old and wise. Can you think of something to bring Scruff out of his hiding place? I think I have a very good idea.
And now here's the UK dub. Note Keith's little hms and hs for Henry.
You're old and wise. Huh? Can you think of something to bring Scruff out of his hiding place?
I think I have a very good idea.
Another example, the crash scene from James to the Rescue. In the US dub, Gordon hardly says anything during.
James roared and raced down the track. He hit Gordon's buffer with a biff and a bash and a terrible smash. Gordon the Grand had toppled off the track into the muddy fen.
But in the UK dub, Keith has him groan and grunts throughout the entire scene.
James roared and raced down the track. He hit Gordon's buffer with a biff and a bash and a terrible smash. Gordon the Grand had toppled off the track into the muddy fen.
And here's this scene from Mucking About.
Don't answer back. Don't try to race them. Just forget them. That's the only way to deal with that sort of construction vehicle.
And now, here's the UK dub.
Don't answer back. Don't try to race them. Just forget them. That's the only way to deal with that sort of construction vehicle.
Notice that little laugh that he adds once Edward's face is off screen. Anywhere Keith could sneak in little fluffs like that, he would. And I'm sure that there are a ton more examples of this. Here's another relevant scene from Thomas and the Rubbish Train. The US dub was recorded first, so Diesel's reaction to Thomas here is likely what was scripted, or at least what Michael Brandon recorded.
But I'm being really useful. Bye, Diesel.
Now here's the UK dub, with Carrie Shale providing a totally different response that mostly matches Diesel's mouth movements.
But I'm being really useful. Bye, Diesel.
Useful.
With how many voice actors there were on Thomas in its later CGI seasons, and how much crossover there ended up being between both dubs, sometimes one voice actor's lines from one dub would accidentally find their way into the other. There's a few instances of this. In Tit for Tat, there's this scene of the clergyman taking a photo of James passing under them.
Cheese!
That was the US dub. Here's the UK dub.
Cheese!
Whoops. Porter is voiced by Steve Kinman in the UK dub.
Hello, my name's Porter.
And David Menken in the US dub.
Hello, my name's Porter.
Menken's Porter has slipped into the UK dub by accident a couple of times. Here in Pouty James. And throughout all of Season 21's Cranky at the End of the Line.
Hi, Salty. Hi, Porter.
Hello, Thomas. 'Tis a fine morning, matey.
Carry on.
Creaky, cranky.
Steve Kinman's performance for Porter in this episode is technically lost media, because we've never heard it. I hope this illustrates how confusing it must have been on the production side of things to maintain two English dubs with so many overlapping voice actors. Holidays. Holidays can sometimes be a tricky subject in the series because the UK and US don't always celebrate the same ones. It's why episodes that clearly take place on Guy Fawkes Night, such as Thomas on the Firework Display or Too Many Fire Engines, never outright say the name of the holiday, because Guy Fawkes Night is not a thing in the US or other countries that Thomas airs in. Can you imagine if they did, and then they had the gall to change it to like the 4th of July or something in the US dub? The biggest holiday discrepancy the series has seen was Thanksgiving, a holiday that the US and Canada celebrate, and the UK doesn't. So, obviously, there are no Thanksgiving Thomas episodes. Sodor doesn't celebrate it. But that didn't stop the US from trying to make one anyway. Thomas and Percy's Christmas adventure from Season 3 is infamously the episode that was totally altered for the US, retroactively turning it into an episode centered around Thanksgiving, and thus retitling it Thomas and Percy's Mountain Adventure. The reason for this was because it aired on Shining Time Station during a Thanksgiving episode, so they altered the Thomas episode to match the topic. All lines referring to Christmas were changed to Thanksgiving.
I won't be able to say Happy Christmas to all my friends.
I won't be able to say Happy Thanksgiving to all my friends.
December became November.
One December morning,
Thomas whistled to all his friends.
One November morning, Thomas whistled to all his friends.
And the entire dialogue between Thomas and Percy discussing Santa Claus was cut out, chopping the runtime down about 15 seconds. This resulted in some major syncing issues, depending on the version you watch.
Your mail train is still back at the siding, isn't it? Percy hurried back to fetch it. Just then, Toby arrived with Henrietta.
I've said it before, and I'll say it again. I think they should have had George Carlin narrate alternate lines, so they could have this be a proper Christmas episode for home media, and leave the weirdly edited Thanksgiving version exclusive to the Shining Time station airing. Around the time of Season 6, the show started to move away from using the word Christmas to describe its winter episodes, and started using the politically correct term, winter holidays, in both dubs.
It's winter holiday time on the island of Sodor.
It's winter holiday time on the island of Sodor.
And it remained this way for quite a number of seasons. However, the Audrey family caught wind of this and made a bit of a fuss about it. Specifically, Hilary Fortnum, Audrey's youngest daughter. She did not appreciate the hesitance to acknowledge Christmas in a series created by a reverend. In response to this, the UK dub went back and had Michael Angelis re-narrate the winter episodes of seasons 14, 15, and 16. All lines that mentioned winter holidays were changed back to Christmas.
The winter holidays are a very special time on the island of Sodor. The Christmas holidays are a very special time on the island of Sodor.
And even some character voice actor dialogue as well.
We never had a winter holiday party on Misty Island. We never had a Christmas holiday party on Misty Island.
This wasn't as big an issue overseas, so the US dub meanwhile continued to use the winter holiday terminology.
Happy Christmas holidays! Happy winter holidays!
By season 17, though, the whole production team had changed, and the higher-ups at Hit Entertainment who mandated the change to begin with were no longer at the company. So Christmas finally returned permanently to both dubs.
What are you two talking about? Tomorrow is Christmas, silly!
And remained so till the end of the series. Something's missing. Sometimes things get messed up in the editing room when putting together these dubs. Files can get misplaced, or accidentally get deleted or muted, and no one notices. It results in each dub sometimes missing things, like full music tracks. The earliest example of a full-on music track missing that I can think of is in the US dub of Season 2's Wrong Road. In the original UK dub, the Busy Station theme plays during the Knapford scene.
Every evening, the two engines pull two fast trains from the station. Gordon always leaves first with an express for the main line. Edward follows 5 minutes later with his train for the branch line.
In the US, however, the music is missing, and the whole scene is silent, creating quite a different vibe.
Every evening, the two engines pull two fast trains from the station. Gordon always leaves first with an express for the main line. Edward follows 5 minutes later with his train for the branch line.
A couple Season 3 episodes are missing music in the US dub, such as here in Percy's Promise.
A promise is a promise, thought Percy, no matter what the weather. The children had a lovely day, but by tea time, dark clouds loomed ahead.
A promise is a promise, thought Percy, no matter what the weather. The children had a lovely day, but by tea time, dark clouds loomed ahead.
And the entire opening scene of Edward Trevor and the Really Useful Party.
Trevor the traction engine is old-fashioned, but he doesn't care. He knows that he is really useful, like his friend Edward, the blue engine.
Trevor the traction engine is old-fashioned, but he doesn't care. He knows that he is really useful, like his friend Edward, the blue engine.
There is a reason for this. The US dub was put together early on during the season's production, and used the early UK dubbing tracks, which were also missing the same music.
A promise is a promise, thought Percy, no matter what the weather. The children had a lovely day, but by tea time, dark clouds loomed ahead. Trevor the traction engine is old-fashioned, but he doesn't care. He knows that he is really useful, like his friend Edward, the blue engine.
While the UK eventually went back and added music to those scenes for all future releases, they never bothered to go back and fix the US dubs. A similar ordeal resulted in a couple Season 4 episodes missing music as well. The busy theme is missing again in the US dub of Thomas and Stepney. Here's the UK version.
He was hardly out of sight when the engines heard shouting at the station. Moments later came the alarm. "Stop all trains!" The signalman answered the telephone. "A special, is it? I see."
And here's the US.
He was hardly out of sight when the engines heard shouting at the station. Moments later came the alarm. "Stop all trains!" The signalman answered the telephone. "A special, is it? I see."
This scene was so eerie to me as a kid. The cut to the man shouting, "Stop all trains!" with his face in shadow felt so ominous. And now I know why. There was meant to be music here. A lot of music is missing in Trucks in the US dub too.
Rusty promised to follow with the rest. Peter Sam didn't mind the extra work. He left his coaches at the station and trundled cheerfully on.
Rusty promised to follow with the rest. Peter Sam didn't mind the extra work. He left his coaches at the station and trundled cheerfully on.
But it was no use. "Hurrah, hurrah!" roared the trucks. Peter Sam shut his eyes.
But it was no use. "Hurrah, hurrah!" roared the cars. Peter Sam shut his eyes.
"Splendid to see you again," whizzed Harold. "I'm completing my evening's lookabout."
"Splendid to see you again," whizzed Harold. "I'm completing my evening's lookabout."
Quite a few Season 5 episodes are missing music in the UK dub, surprisingly. In Lady Hat's birthday party, Topham's theme is meant to be playing during Caroline's breakdown, as seen here.
But Caroline didn't like going fast.
I'm hot! My engine will overheat!
And it did.
Told you so!
But in the UK, it's silent.
But Caroline didn't like going fast. "I'm hot. My engine will overheat." And it did. "Told you so."
It happens again in A Surprise for Percy. A little ditty is meant to play while the trucks sing at Percy.
Percy, Percy, green and small, he's no use to us at all. Around the yards he'll puff and blow, but on the hills he's oh so slow.
"Percy, Percy, green and small, he's no use to us at all. Around the yards he'll puff and blow, but on the hills he's oh so slow."
And this little Duncan ditty is missing in the US dub of Faulty Whistles.
For the rest of the day, Duncan didn't make a sound. But the headmaster's organ did. As Duncan delivered his trucks, the headmaster tooted the organ at every crossing and every stop. It alerted everyone.
For the rest of the day, Duncan didn't make a sound. But the headmaster's organ did. As Duncan delivered his freight cars, the headmaster tooted the organ at every crossing and every stop.
But it's not just music that goes missing. Sometimes even whole lines of dialogue are just straight up gone. This line from the narrator is missing in the US dub of Blue Mountain Mystery.
But Thomas was already hurrying to the Blue Mountain Quarry as fast as his pistons could pump.
And this line is missing in the US dub of The Smelly Kipper.
The smell was even stronger now. James hurried as fast as he could to deliver the fish.
I kind of prefer it without, to be honest. You can still tell what's happening. Glenn becomes mute during this scene in the UK dub of The Christmas Coffee Pot.
Guess what's in my shovel?
Max and Monty's guests here are missing from the UK dub of Mucking About.
Hello, hello, hello. Max and Monty. Hello, hello, hello. Max and Monty.
And Gordon's groan isn't present here in the UK dub of Will You, Won't You.
I had a race with Gordon once and I was the winner. I had a race with Gordon once and I was the winner.
I'm sure there are loads more of these that I missed, but I think you all get the picture. Route versus route. And I'm going to end this video with this weird difference. I wasn't really sure where to categorize this one, so it's going to just get its own little section. This refers to a specific episode, Season 17's Thomas's Shortcut. In the UK dub, all the characters pronounce the word route as route.
I like to race Bertie, but he's been rerouted. What does rerouted mean?
And in the US dub, they all explicitly say route.
I like to race Birdie, but he's been rerouted.
What does rerouted mean?
They even had Keith Wickham say Birdie's line here in both ways.
I've been rerouted. I've been rerouted.
This is such a small but deliberate change, and it kind of boggles my mind a little bit. Is route not the way the word is supposed to be said in the US? My fellow American viewers, I must ask you all, how do you say this word? Because I've always said route. I've never said it as route. I feel like both pronunciations are common here, so it just kind of seems silly to me that they'd bothered to go and change it. But maybe I'm in the minority here. I think the fact the two dubs of Thomas being so different from each other makes the viewing experience pretty entertaining for fans. Watching a new dub of the same show is almost like watching it for the first time again, and it's fun noticing all the little differences. At the same time though, I think we're long past the need for an exclusive US dub of the show at this point. It made sense to have one way back in the 90s when the narrator was the only one talking. But as we got further into the CGI series, and both dubs started sharing so many of the same voice actors, and even a narrator, the whole effort really started to feel pointless. With things like the Fat Controller now being called a Sir Topham Hatt in both countries now, and with the general world being pretty aware that Thomas is a British thing, I really don't think we need a US dub anymore. I'm hoping that will be the case with the new show later this year. Fully embrace Thomas's roots, I say. Lean into the Britishness of it. Let them have their accents. Let them celebrate Guy Fawkes Night and transport rubbish trains. We Americans can handle it. I assure you. This pick of the week goes to Boko's Bind by Blaine's Models. This is a fun, very tongue-in-cheek story about Boko getting involved with the mafia. I'm serious. But it's great. It's funny, it's simple, and it's quite well written. All filmed with wooden trains. Blaine's videos are pretty funny in general. I recommend checking out some of his new retrospective videos as well. Go show him some love. So I didn't originally intend for this video to go out on the 4th of July, but it's pretty fitting, I think. I mean, a video about the US dub on America's birthday? Sure, that fits, right? This video topic was chosen by my patrons, and I want to give a big ol' thank you to you all for participating in that. It seems the majority of you want me to keep the Patreon bumper at the start of videos, so I brought it back, and it will stay. I guess it is a good indicator that an Unlucky Tug video is starting if you have videos on autoplay in the background or something. Thank you all for the feedback, everyone. I appreciate it. And that's about it from me, y'all. Happy 4th of July to all my American viewers. Have fun out there tonight, and be safe. I'll see you all in the next one. Bye-bye.